Welcome to another episode of the So-Called Oreos podcast where we discuss all the awkwardness, hardship, and hilarity that comes along with society labeling you white on the inside and black on the outside, also known as an Oreo. I'm one of your hosts, Amari Pollard, here with
Kia Swinton. Bow bow.
Pew pew. It's just us today, guys. As y'all know, life is crazy. Things happen. So Janae is here with us in spirit, but she's not gonna be joining us for this episode today. Today, obviously, we're talking about politics again, and we just wanted to go through like some history facts about Black people and voting in America. So the first one we have for you is in 1787, the Constitutional Convention decided that 3/5 of the slave population would be counted for determining direct taxation and representation in the House of Representatives. That's crazy. I just think the 3/5 as like a fraction is always just going to be very triggering, I think, for me and just for most Black people. And when we were reading this stat back, it made me think about the recent appointment of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, because for those of you who don't know, Amy is a Constitution originalist. So essentially, this just means that she believes the Constitution does not change over time, and that it should, when the time in which it was written is how we should abide by it. So essentially what she's saying is that Black people are not whole humans, women are subservient to men, and just all the unequal things that were occurring during this time should be upheld right now. And this is just another reason why she should not be in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and she has 2 Black adopted kids.
This is another argument about why just because you have a Black adopted children does not mean anything about you as a human being.
Yeah, I don't like when people like, I don't even think, how can you say you're a constitutionalist? That's the dumbest thing ever. That's like, life evolves over time, and the fact that there hasn't been an amendment in so long is problematic because, like we said, life evolves over time. There's things
Make
over
adjustments.
time. Yeah, and like that's how I kind of feel about the Bible too, because I'm like, the Bible was written in how many years ago? It's like obviously that shouldn't be taken like word for word, because again, life evolves over time. Like maybe that's problematic for some people, but you just can't live off something from like 1400s, be like, I'm gonna live like this in 2025. It's like that literally doesn't make sense. And like I hate the whole like abide by the Constitution. Like the world was such a different place by now. Or shut up. Like just say you're racist and go.
Really, just say you're racist, say like you care about guns more than you care about human life. And also on the subject of like reproductive rights, like what is with everyone's obsession, everyone else's like their female organ, like why are you so concerned about about women's ovaries and like all these things that have nothing to do with you? Why do you feel the need to be able to tell someone that they can't do what they need to do for themselves? Like I just like don't.
And people who think like birth control, it's like just to not have babies, which even if it was mind your business, but for me it's like I'm on that because like I have dysphoria or whatever it's called, and like there's a good chance I have endometriosis too.
Which is very common among women.
Yeah, it's hard to diagnose.
Painful.
Yeah, it's hard to diagnose that, which is crazy. Even in 2020, it's hard to diagnose this. And I had vaginismus, so I just have a lot of issues with like the pelvic floor, and it's very painful. Like painful to the point where like I cannot go to work or school. Like I have to just stay in bed at least for one day. And even when I was younger, and I got my period like in middle school, high school, all that stuff, every month. We never talked about it, but I'm pretty sure my dad knows, like every month I would just be puking all day, and I would just have to go home from school. I would have to call my dad this is once a month, like it's common, and I would just be puking. It was just so painful, and like it didn't stop until I got on birth control. And like I just can't imagine going through that pain in my everyday life, especially when I have more responsibilities. And it is scary when you hear people talk about birth control and like I'm about to lose my health care because I got laid off and I'm turning 26, and it's crazy because I never thought I had to deal with this. And maybe I could be a little, I try to be empathetic, but it's just crazy because I'm like, my parents are college educated, I'm college educated, I have all this stuff, and I still have to worry about these things. And I can't imagine with other people having to worry about this stuff, and we have this dummy these women.
Mind you, she hasn't been practicing law for that long. She's actually based off of her resume, not qualified to sit
Yeah.
on the
Of
Supreme
course she's
Court.
not. Of course she's not.
And I try not to think about it because it really does scare me. But like you said, like birth control, people, I just don't understand how people, like, it's such a base thing. Like obvious, like birth control is, people use it for hormone imbalance. Like it impacts you in different ways. And like, unless you have to go through a period once a month and like also deal with like other issues that come along with this, like you don't get a say in what happens in the female body.
You should not get a say. And I just want to make a point too, just internationally, like Poland is going through something right now where they're trying to ban abortion altogether, and the government is like doing stuff to the demonstrators and stuff like that. So this is not just an American thing. Like this is going on other ways too, and like Poland's having some demonstrations right now with them trying to just like block abortion in the entire country.
Right wing is happening across the country,
especially in Europe. Especially
Europe. So it's like people are like, okay, you don't like it here, leave America and go somewhere else. Well, like everywhere people hate, they're gonna hate on Black people.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Well, back to our history lesson for the relationships between Black people and politics. In 1870, the 15th Amendment was passed, which prohibits the federal government in each state from denying a citizen the right to vote based on a citizen's race, color, and or previous condition of servitude. So basically, it gave people, who were slaves and Black men who were slaves and Black to vote in 1870, which is part of the Reconstruction Amendment. But as we know, there are still some, you know what I'm trying to say.
Other things that can be done to make sure your vote you can't make it to the polls. And as we're going to see in this next fact, it's poll taxes, literary tests, and fraud and intimidation all turned away African Americans from the polls until the Supreme Court struck it down in 1915. Many states used the grandfather clause to keep descendants of slaves out of the elections. The clause said you could not vote unless your grandfather had voted, an impossibility for most people whose ancestors were slaves.
And so that's 45 years from the last stat where they did get the right to vote, but not until 1915, where, they try to use this grandfather clause, which obviously all your damn grandparents were slaves at that point.
So they didn't vote.
Yeah. It's like, why even make the law if y'all are going to try to do this?
Right. And these tactics are still used today. Like we're still seeing intimidation right now. Like literally we have a president who's literally saying use force at the polls. Like
sure is.
And it's not hidden. Like people are so confident in their bigotry and racism right now that they're just blatantly saying they're gonna do illegal shit.
Yeah. And we'll get more into that towards the end of the episode because we'll break that down, especially when it comes to Black people. But the next stat we have in our timeline is in 1964, the 24th Amendment prohibited the use of poll tax. So like Amari said, there were poll tax, and it wasn't until like 1964 that they stopped the poll tax because obviously they knew Black people from history, were slaves and stuff, hard to get equity. They used money against them because they knew they didn't have generational wealth to go in the polls. And I'm just thinking like, damn, if people are still like, I don't see how racism and slavery exists today and it affects us today, it's like, read a book. That just gets me so mad.
You're being willfully ignorant at
like this point. Is just a prime example of slavery ending in like 1800s or whatever, and now we're at 1964.
Yep. Long-lasting impacts, because you can't have slavery for over 300 years and not have that I do it like they say for a relationship, which also like this formula doesn't actually work because we're humans and we have emotions and they can't work on a timeline, but they say for the length of your relationship, it should take you half the time to get over it. For the length of slavery, I think it's going to take you double the time.
800 years.
To right all those wrongs.
And America's like, we're on year 1 getting it right. Like, my God.
And in 1965, the Voting Rights Act directed the Attorney General to enforce the right to vote for African Americans.
And the last stat we have for you guys, the Black voter turnout rate declined for the first time in 20 years in a presidential election, falling to 15.6% in 2016 after reaching the record high in of 66.6% in 2012. And we'll come back with debunking some myths that we have about Black people and voting, because a lot of people seem like they want to blame Black people in voting. But that record high obviously was because people were excited for Obama, people weren't excited for Hillary, and I don't think you can blame that on the people. That's up to the party to get the excitement out to vote. Okay, we're back with debunking the myth that Black people don't vote and blaming them. So, like we said, a lot of people like to bring up the stats that, that Black people voted a lot in 2012 and not 2016. And like Amari said, I feel like we already said this, but yeah, we only make up 13%, 14% of the population. So, and there's a lot of many systematic issues that suppress our votes. So, like, you guys just can't be like, Black people
don't
ruin
want to
it.
vote. Right.
Yeah. It's like, shut up.
Also, like, I don't know if this is in the stats for Black women later on the line, but I think it was in the last election that Black women showed up in droves to vote majority Democrat for Hillary Clinton. And I remember writing an article about it for theweek.com. It was like I don't know if it was record numbers. I think it was record numbers. And also people then afterwards had this like idea that like Black women are going to save like the elections and they're going to save all this stuff. And it's kind of like, why do y'all only care about us when you think it's going to positively impact your life? And also the fact that you would put so much pressure on Black women. Like if Black people are only 13, 14% of the population, Black women are probably like half of that.
Yeah, 7% maybe.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it's like, y'all never address the how many percent, 56% that voted for Donald Trump. Y'all never address those white women and your white friends that 50% voted for Donald Trump. What was it, 80, 70% for white men, Latinos. Y'all, I'm about to get y'all too, because 35% of y'all voting for Donald Trump this election. So I'm gonna get to y'all. But basically the point is that, y'all want to do all this Black women. And it's like, the Democratic Party, that black people, especially Black women, help you, and y'all ain't never ever give us anything to vote for. Y'all only use the Republicans against because they know that we hate them and they hate us, and that's the only thing. But best believe when we break this two-party system, y'all gonna have it real hard. And Joe Biden, I'm coming for that ass too, because I'm sick of I'm sick of you and you being racist. It's just straight up racist on and listen, I'm still gonna vote for him. I still voted for him. I still need y'all to vote for him, but I'm gonna get to you when you get in that office, because I'm holding you accountable, because he said some stuff about Philadelphia, how he was like, I never condone looting and violence and and like when he was asked about Black
honestly
people.
anytime he opens his mouth, I'm just like, Joe, say less.
Just let Kamala have it and go.
Honestly, Kamala could fight everyone with her looks. It's like themselves. I mean, granted, I know Kamala is a very, people have thoughts on that too, but I mean, and I think
not nearly as bad as Joe Biden though.
No, not nearly as much as Joe. But I think the thing too about this election is that like I was listening to I can't remember what interview I was listening to the other day, but it's true. It's like either way you spin it, whoever wins, it's going to be a defining moment for America, because I don't even want to think about what happened if 45 wins. But if Joe wins and, it was AOC, her interview with Vanity Fair, she's like, if Joe wins and people don't feel a change and they don't see a change, you're going to have a bunch of other versions of Donald Trump coming up to step up and turn the tide. Kind of like what essentially what happened with Obama is that people just like, some people, I think statistic wise, a lot of people that had voted for Obama in his previous elections voted for Donald Trump in this new election.
But I also think people have to realize, like, the president can only do so much when he doesn't have the Senate and the House. And I think a lot of people, like someone tweeted, I had to unfollow because someone's like, Obama had 8 years to legalize weed and didn't. One, that's not his priority. Two, that's stupid.
That's what he had to complain about.
Yeah,
about Obama, just the legalization of weed.
I'm like, everyone thought Obama was going to be this Black savior. Like, you have to realize, again, Black people are 1% of the population. He did not have the House and the Senate. He's working against all those forces. But let's put some respect on what Obama did do. A lot of y'all have health care because of Obama. A lot of y'all have birth control free because of Obama. Climate change, a lot of things were done because of Obama, LGBT rights because of Obama. So let's just put some respect on his name. That's just a couple of things, but I hate when people say that because it's like y'all don't really know how it works and y'all want to blame Obama, but did you vote in your local elections?
And I think that's also the thing too, is that like the way I think people are like taught about the system is that like at the top is the president, and it's like, no, there are actually a bunch of different other positions underneath that are just as important and have sometimes more sway than him.
Checks and balances, people.
Checks and balances.
And I know y'all learned about that. The number of Black Americans eligible to vote for president has reached a record high of 30 million in 2020. So we're still making stats over her.
Yes. And then for many years, Black voters were the largest non-white racial and ethnic segment of the country's electorate. But for the first time in the presidential election, they will be outnumbered by Hispanic eligible voters at 32 million. Also, important point, as Kia pointed out earlier, I read another article on The Atlantic the other day talking about how Latina men might be the reason that Donald Trump has saved this election.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people like to just like be like, oh, Black and brown people, clearly Democrats.
We are split that up because you see a lot of Cuban people that typically vote Republican. A lot of those people in Florida who are racist typically vote Republican. And like you said, a lot of Latino men, for whatever reason, because he can call y'all rapists and lock your children up at the border, but for some reason y'all will still vote for him, and you like how he's macho and he's a man, even though you will never have even 1% of that money and that wealth.
And I think a lot of it has to do with like religion and Catholicism, and how like Catholicism has been really, even though Joe Biden is a Catholic, we know Catholicism is big in the Latin, Hispanic populations, and that's kind of been associated with the Republican Party for a long time. And, even though I find it interesting because it's like, we're the religious party, but yet we want to use our religion to suppress women and take away their reproductive rights.
Yeah, like I said, I've been reading a lot about the Latino vote, and I just feel like if y'all want to direct any energy to Black people, you can miss us with that, because the people that vote the least, and I don't know if I wrote that in here, but maybe we'll get to it, are Latino and Asian people. So again,
oh really? I didn't know that.
Yes. So I think because a lot of them aren't registered to vote because they're like immigrants and stuff like that. But I do know the least is Latino and Asian people. So don't come to Black people and direct that energy toward us, because it is not us. But again, speaking on Black people, because this podcast is for and almost be for Black people, 63% of Black registered voters are extremely motivated to vote. Furthermore, among those who support Joe Biden, over a third, 35%, said they plan on casting or have already casted their vote by absentee or mail-in ballot.
Okay, well this for this latest episode of So-Called Oreos. Thanks so much for tuning in this week, guys. Follow us on all social media at So-Called Oreos, and you can also email us at socalledoreos@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. Love your feedback. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. And please remember to like, rate, and subscribe, and leave a review. Until next time, bye.
Bye, guys. Happy Election Day.